Parliament then goes through those documents. Problem is that
William Ruto taabani guys. You see guys, kama story imeanza kufichuka hivi, series za Rais William Ruto na parliament na judiciary na hizi vitengo vingine vyote then William Ruto is a one-term president. Unaona guys, tumekuwa tukiambiwa kwamba parliament imekuwa captured, judiciary imekuwa captured, DPP imekuwa captured. Hizi vitengo vyote tumeambiwa vimekuwa captured, but bado wale close allies wa William Ruto wanakataa kwamba kuna kitu imekuwa captured because wanataka kuendelea tu kufanya mambo yao pale ndani juu Rais William Ruto ni jamaa wao wa ndani zaidi. Unaona watu wangu, and now hiyo ndio reason William Ruto aliamua kufire huyu Rigathi Gachagua. Juu Rigathi Gachagua alikuwa anajaribu kabisa kukalia William Ruto ngumu zaidi, asijaribu kucapture hizi vitengo. Juu hizi vitengo ndio zinatetea mwananchi. Now, ukweli umeanza kubainika wazi. William Ruto ako tabani and show me like video, anasema thanks for a great support. Nyinyi ni watu wa nguvu zaidi. Sikiza mambo.
Clutching on straws about, especially looking at things happening elsewhere. Senator says they have nothing really that they're talking about. They are yet to own their narrative. Do you agree with that assessment that 687 days, they're still very fluid and probably they're just clutching on straws?
Actually, sometimes I don't know whether it's a deliberate confusion in which, as a country, we have politicized everything. I think once a government has been elected, its main responsibility is to govern and not to do politics 24/7, to be hosting delegations at State House more than 2 years before the next general election. If this is happening just like that person from Vietnam saying, it is really where you take the criticism that a country that should be off the mic and switch on the lights is still insisting that you should be on the microphone. I have heard from those State House speeches situations whereby you are the incumbent, you are in office. Things that you can be able to do today, you are telling delegations, if you re-elect me, I am going to do this or the other. Failure cannot be more spectacular, if you ask me. And therefore, if you use the standard of politics 24/7 to be the standard against which you are going to judge the opposition, then you will be told, why are you not playing politics as effectively as William Ruto? And to me, if you asked me, it is really regrettable. You saw Kibaki, you elect him, he is off the political radar until the election season comes. That's the way in which it ought to be. Not any other way that every day you are politicking and not working. Hosting delegation is not work. Hosting delegations is actually the assumption that you need to be supported based on politics, not performance. And therefore, for me, even to consider that as a yardstick, it is wrong because the nominations, for example, for any positions are going to take place in the months of April, May, and June 2027. So where should the pressure be coming for the opposition? That you should be organized, we should be having a candidate. That one is completely uncalled for. But there's a more interesting issue, if you let me. The whole idea of talking about the opposition in this country is mistaken. If you are to talk about the opposition based on the performance of the last election, then you'd be talking about Azimio. Azimio, it was actually the majority, but it didn't produce a president. Now this Azimio, under the constitution, it ought to hold certain positions in parliament and elsewhere, on the basis of which they can hold the president accountable. But what is it that has happened? Parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly, have been completely captured. So that when you go to the National Assembly, and even at the executive level, you're having a scenario where people who ought to be governing, Gachagua and his group, were ejected from government. People who are supposed now to be for constitution and with a manifesto that is supposed to be answering Kenya Kwanza are now in government. That structural problem, dysfunction of government, has to be addressed in an honest manner. Otherwise, to continue running around issues would be mistaken. Two other little points.
Are we expecting too much from the team we're calling United Opposition to carry that mantle or that burden that Azimio should have been carrying?
Yes, it is not their burden, because like a person like Rigathi Gachagua, let's say as an example, he belongs in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, but he was ejected, isn't it? The people who ought now to be saying this is the vision for Kenya that was actually voted for has joined government. And that is the confusion that I'm talking about, that nobody is talking about. Now, about the compensation, I'm so educated. In the compensation issue, and this thing, I'm a human rights lawyer, this is something very important to me. Apart from the fact that some people were killed, those people who are killed, sometimes you cry for them, but you bury them. But the pain never goes. But there's another worse kind of pain that we are having amongst families, those of us who have met them. A lot of young people were shot and maimed. Those young people, some of them had young families. There are some of those people are still going for medication. As we have this political body to talk about compensation, which is the law has already provided for, one would actually be able to wonder, what is the big deal about each of these families with injured people, giving them 2 million each, as we wait for this other body to do this or the other? I go back to George Floyd. You remember George Floyd of the US? When George Floyd was killed, Biden did not form a task force. Biden said the American government apologizes for this unlawful killing and ex gratia. The American government is going to compensate the family a certain amount of money that was mentioned. It was a substantial amount of money. So to me, the president, in the same way that you go to State House and decides every teacher is going to be given a 10 million, a 10,000 bribe, he can also compensate these people without much ado. Finally, on these issues of you are educated, you are this, you are that. Kibaki was not officially a doctor. He was not officially a professor. But anybody, I had a one chance or two to talk to him privately. Those people, even who speaks about him, Kisa Kitui, Anyang' Nyong'o, Kipruto Kirwa, they also say the same thing, that rarely could you come across a man who had the presence of mind and understanding of what people ought to do than Mwai Kibaki. Did he brag to anybody how educated he was? He did not. But finally, I finish by saying, some of us have gone to school substantial enough, and we know a lot about the world. And one of the things we used to say, we were in the same generation with my colleague Honorable Mungatana, there are people we used to call real professors and real doctorates and fake ones. As a lawyer, you could be named. You heard about somebody called Professor Okoth Ogendo, Professor Gai. You heard about somebody called Karistos Juma, Professor Goge wa Thiong'o. There were these guys, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, that you would be able to say that when you hear so and so is a professor, you need to hear him for 5 minutes to see what they have done, to indicate they are professors or have doctorates. But sometimes in Kenya, in fact, I wonder whether he should be a doctorate at all, because I see people with little in their minds saying they are doctors. People who have messed up countries saying that they are doctors, they are professors. So the one of the things is, I would actually be more interested to say, the guy calling himself a professor, is there any evidence to say he's really a professor? The Americans, sometimes they keep saying, you read it in The Economist, that a lot of these people who call themselves engineers and doctors in other countries, in those countries they would only be technicians, diploma holders. So even sometimes you don't know whether you are botany in the US, it would just be a diploma.
Right.
So we don't have to break bones over this.
And I would want to get your opinion on this clutching on straws.